80 years later, why do people compress this catastrophe into just bad harvest?
The crisis didn't start in 1945. It began earlier, then escalated month by month. It spread across the north and north-central regions, wide enough to reshape everyday life.
We study the archive, but we also question the story the archive is made to tell.
At first, scarcity looks ordinary, until it changes how people move and trade.
Nature played a role, but nature alone rarely explains mass hunger.
A famine begins on paper. Quotas, taxes, restrictions, long before it appears in memory. When food becomes controlled inventory, hunger becomes controlled outcome. Transport decides survival, cut routes, and a region can be starved. Rivers and rails were lifelines, until they became choke points. Scarcity becomes lethal when the poor cannot afford what still exists. Numbers can hide violence. Prices rise, wages lag, and choices disappear. Acquisition turns harvest into supply for war, not for families. When quotas are fixed, hunger becomes predictable and preventable. Being forced to change what you grow can be the difference between eating and not. Shifting land to non-food crops may look strategic until the food gap widens. Land use is politics written onto soil. In homes, the crisis sounded like a jar being sealed earlier than usual.
Restrictions on movement can turn surplus elsewhere into famine here. Limits aren't neutral. They decide who travels with food and who travels without. Hunger grows fastest where food exists, but access is denied.
So why do we say "mất mùa" and stop there?
Bureaucracy can feel clean, while its consequences are anything but.
Markets don't empty by accident. Rules and fear can drain them. When prices climb, poverty becomes a trap with no exit. If food is priced beyond reach, availability becomes a cruel illusion.
Inflation isn't abstract. It's the moment a family realizes they cannot buy dinner. Numbers rise until they stop meaning anything to the hungry. A famine can look like waiting, standing where food should be. When money fails, dignity is the next thing to run out.
Even where food remains, access can vanish.
Calling this only bad harvest erases the human decisions in the chain.
When records exist, simplification becomes a choice, not a necessity. The crisis expanded across many provinces with alarming speed. Then, nature delivered another blow, when resilience was already exhausted. A single flood can erase a season in a fragile system. A broken dike is more than water. It's lost future harvest. Recovery takes time.
time that hunger does not grant.
When fields fail and policies don't change, scarcity becomes inevitable. Weather is visible. Decisions are hidden, yet decisions often matter more.
As food runs out, people move, because staying feels like surrender.
Migration wasn't adventure. It was a search for a meal.
In crisis, families trade belongings for time. One more day, one more week. Communities tried to respond because institutions often arrived too late. Relief can save lives, but it cannot replace a functioning food system. Aid is a bandage. The wound is structural. Solidarity grows when official systems fail.
When scarcity deepens, social trust is the first casualty.
Famine is not only hunger, it is the collapse of planning and protection. Who is accountable when paperwork turns into empty bowls? If food is locked nearby, natural disaster becomes an incomplete answer. A famine beside full storage is the definition of policy failure.
The causes were layered: economic, political, logistical, and environmental.
Even quiet rooms can carry the loudest questions. By early 1945, the crisis intersected with a rapidly changing war.
Power shifted in March 1945, but hunger did not wait for politics.
Information traveled fast, but food did not.
Then a radical demand rose.
Open the stores! Feed the people!
Not spectacle. Emergency redistribution in the face of systemic failure.
In crisis, communities often do what institutions refuse to do. These actions didn't end the crisis everywhere, but they slowed the spiral. Recovery begins quietly, planting again, even when strength is low. Food security is seasonal. Delays become deadly. When transport resumes, the possibility of normal life returns. A refilling market is breathing space, not yet victory. Sometimes survival is measured in a few more scoops. After scarcity, health risks rise because sanitation and strength collapse together.
Famine is never just hunger. It reshapes public health, too.
Communities rebuild through coordination, mutual aid, and shared rules. Recovery is not one event. It is many small systems turning back on.
By late 1945, a new political order claimed a new priority: ending hunger.
The first test of any government is basic survival: food, health, stability.
A bold proposal: share what you can, even when you have little. Collective sacrifice can work if people believe the burden is shared fairly.
Infrastructure is hunger policy. Protect fields, protect the next harvest.
Food security begins in the smallest spaces, yards, edges, communal land.
Short-term crops buy time, while rice cycles catch up. Logistics becomes mercy when it moves food where it's needed. Stability is visible when panic stops shaping every purchase. Policy becomes real only when it reaches the village, the market, the kitchen. People rebuilt through labor, because rebuilding is the opposite of waiting.
The simplest symbol of recovery is food stored for people, not for extraction.
System recovered because multiple links were repaired, not just one.
Memory should be more than mourning. It should be a warning system. Food is security, and security is policy, not fate.
So why do some narratives shrink this into mut mua? 2 words.
Weather is visible, decisions are hidden, yet hidden decisions often decide outcomes.
When authority passes by hunger, neutrality becomes a choice.
A famine is imbalance between supply and access, power and rights.
The archive can accuse if we ask the right questions.
What's missing from the record can be as important as what's shown. History turns on logistics, because logistics turns on permission. Delay is deadly when the margin is already gone. If food exists, then hunger is also a question of distribution.
Systems are built by signatures, so responsibility can be traced. The people proved something. Solidarity works, but prevention is the real duty.
Trust returns when rules feel fair and when access is restored. Resilience is built, not wished for, and it must be maintained.
This wasn't one cause, it was a chain. Break the chain, and you prevent the disaster.
If we refuse simple labels, we get closer to truth and to prevention.
When lifelines connect, people live. When lifelines are cut, people pay. Food polony is the quiet architecture of survival.
The most serious lesson is simple. Protect the basics before everything collapses.
Planning can be the difference between hardship and catastrophe.
Never forget the scale, because forgetting makes repetition easier.
History is counted in faces, not slogans. Responsibility is shared, but accountability must be named. Call it what it was, a systemic breakdown made worse by choices, not only nature.
And if we challenge the label mut mua, we honor memory with clarity.
Because prevention starts when we stop simplifying what happened.
Nếu bạn thích video này, hãy theo dõi tôi để khám phá thêm nhiều điều thú vị mà chúng ta chưa biết trong các video tiếp theo.